Before I begin, I believe this story is fake, but nonetheless I find it pretty interesting, so do give it a watch. Was paralyzed in an accident and my wife cheated with my neighbor who was evil, but a miracle surgery gave me my lost life back. My name is Ethan John. In the last year or so my life has been a roller coaster of unimaginable lows and unexpected highs. It all started with a devastating accident that left me paralyzed, unable to move or speak, but that was just the beginning of my nightmare. What followed was a series of betrayals, abuse and heartbreak that nearly broke me, but somehow through it all, I found the strength to survive and even thrive. This is my story. I was in an accident. I was riding my motorcycle on a sunny afternoon when a truck driver, apparently not seeing me, pulled out onto the highway. The collision was brutal. I don't remember much of the impact, just a flash of metal and then darkness. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, I could barely even blink. The doctors told me I was lucky to be alive. Lucky, that word seemed like a cruel joke at the time. I was paralyzed from the neck down, unable to do anything but breathe and blink. I couldn't even swallow without difficulty. Going to the bathroom, don't even get me started on that humiliation. The only silver lining, if you could call it that, was the multi-million-dollar settlement I got from the trucking company. All my medical expenses were covered, and I would receive a monthly stipend that would support my wife Laura and me for the rest of our lives. Between that, my disability payments, and Laura's income as a pargal, we were financially secure, but money couldn't fix what was broken inside me. I spent 6 months in the hospital before I was finally allowed to come home. I thought things would get better once I was in familiar surroundings, but I was dead wrong. That's when my life took an even darker turn. "How's that?" the counselor asked, looking at me. "I'm so ashamed I don't think I can even repeat what happened during those 6 months," I said, a tear falling down my cheek. "That's okay," she said in response. "Everything you say here will be kept confidential. Remember, I'm here to help you heal." I nodded my head and took a sip of water before continuing. "Let's start with your marriage. Tell me a little bit about that." I told her about my marriage to Laura, how we met in college, then married after we both graduated. At the time of my accident I was only 25, and we had been married for 3 years. I worked as a mechanical engineer, and she worked as a pargal for a big law firm downtown. We were able to afford a fairly large 3-bedroom apartment. Originally we had planned on turning 1 bedroom into a nursery. The 2nd bedroom was used as an office by both of us, but after my accident, the nursery was turned into my room since it was large enough to accommodate all of my medical equipment. Laura did all she could to take care of me the first month or so, but it was clear that she wasn't up to it, especially the bathroom stuff, so she sought help. Our neighbors Greg and Callie Wallace said they would do what they could to help. At the time I considered them friends, and since he was an attorney at Laura's firm, he often drove her into work. Callie was a nurse at a local hospital, so she would check in on me from time to time, to make sure I was all right. She even helped us secure a home health nurse to check in on me during the day. After a month it was obvious that Laura wasn't up to the task even with all the help, and that's when Greg stepped in. The counselor asked, yes. It all began innocently enough, but I could tell that he had a thing for my wife. She often broke down crying, and of course he was always there to console her. I could hear them in the front room making out on our couch, then he would take her into what used to be our master bedroom and have sex with her. But it didn't end there, did it? the counselor asked. I shook my head. No, I said. Afterward he would come into my room to taunt me, telling me how he felt after screwing my wife. I saw the look on the counselor's face. Sorry, I said. Where was his wife during all this? The counselor asked. Was she working? Yes, she often worked strange shifts, and it wasn't unusual for her to be gone all night, working the graveyard shift. I see, the counselor said. Go on. I took a deep breath before continuing. After about a month of that he came into my room while Laura was taking a shower. I was so ashamed, I couldn't even finish my statement. Did he abuse you? The counselor asked. I nodded my head as I wiped the tears off my face. Yes, I said quietly. How often did this happen? The counselor asked. I don't know, maybe a couple times a week or so for about 4 months. He even told me that he was going to bring some of his friends over to have fun with me. Did your wife know this was going on? The counselor asked. I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know, she was never right there when it happened. She would always come by later, and go on about how good it was we had friends like Greg to help look after me. I'll never forget the day he brought in that damn monitor and set it up on my dresser. He had it hooked up to a camera, and had me watch as he screwed my wife. Laura thought it was wonderful that he brought it in. When did the abuse stop? The counselor asked. The day Dr. Victor came by to see me. I remember that day, like it was yesterday. Laura brought Dr. Victor and my attorney into my room, just a couple hours after Greg had abused me. Dr. Victor was an older, somewhat short, balding man, with a German accent. I thought back to that visit. Ethan, there's a Du Victor here to see you, Laura said, escorting him into my room. Dr. Victor came over, and introduced himself to me. He also introduced an assistant carrying a tablet. My lawyer Jacob Harrison was also there. Ethan, I'm Dr. Franklin Victor, and I'm here to discuss a possible treatment for your condition, he said. He turned to Laura. Before continuing, I'll take care of it from here, Missy, he told her. Please wait in the other room. She left the room, but I noticed a look of concern on her face. He turned back to me, pulled up a chair and sat, looking at me eye to eye before speaking. Now Ethan, let me explain. I run a high-end research facility on Lake Arrowhead. We've been doing some groundbreaking research on 3D bone reconstruction and implants to heal nerve damage. I think your case is tailor-made for us. I've looked at your chart, and I know the extent of the damage you have suffered, he added. I believe we can help you regain much, if not all, of your physical capabilities. Is that something you might be interested in? Please blink once for yes, and twice for no. What else could I say to something like this? Of course, I blinked once. Good, he said with a smile. Now you need to understand, this is all experimental, but we have been given approval for human testing. And thanks to external grants we've received, it will cost you nothing whatsoever. That was good news, but I was a bit concerned about this being experimental. I know you're probably concerned about this being experimental, as if reading my mind, Greg, let that concern you. If the operation isn't successful, you won't be in any worse shape than you are now, but I believe you are a good candidate, and I have confidence that everything will work just fine. In fact, if we're as successful as I believe we will be, you will be even stronger than you were before the accident. That gave me some hope, so I listened as he explained the procedure. Basically, he explained that all of the damaged vertebrae would be replaced with vertebrae made from a composite material that would be even stronger than the original. On top of that, the new vertebrae would be constructed with a 3D printer that used data obtained by my own body. In theory, the new bones would be exact duplicates of the old ones, just stronger. In addition, he would insert tiny electronic implants that would help to heal the damaged nerves. The operation itself would last 3 to 4 hours, and the recovery time could last up to several days, depending on how fast I healed. Dr. Victor also explained that he had already reviewed the data from my hospitalization and had started the process of constructing the new bones. I hope you don't mind, he said. Initially, we wanted to see if we could actually reconstruct the damaged bone based on data gleaned from your records. Once we found that we could, we decided to go for the actual procedure. Once I was strong enough, I would undergo physical therapy that he said could last a few weeks. So is this something you would like to try, he asked. Blink once for yes, or 2 for no. Of course, I blinked once. He smiled and rubbed his hands together. Very good, he exclaimed. He motioned for his assistant to join us. Please let Mr. John read the agreement. The assistant came over and held the tablet as I read through the agreement. When I was finished, Dr. Victor asked me if I agreed again, instructing me to blink once for yes. I blinked once. Very well, instructing his assistant to have me rightly signed with my thumbprint. Once that was done, Jacob countersigned, verifying that he had witnessed my agreement to the procedure. Are you ready to get started? He asked. Of course, I blinked once. He smiled, then let him get going. Greg, worry, we have everything you'll need at the facility. He motioned for his assistant to wheel me out of the apartment and Ted a large van that was waiting in the parking lot. Laura stopped us on the way out. Where are you going? She asked. Dr. Victor looked at her. Before answering, your husband has agreed to a procedure which could put him back on his feet. Where are you taking him? She asked. How long will he be gone? How much is this going to cost? We are transporting him to my facility on Lake Arrowhead, the doctor said. He could be gone for several weeks, depending on how well he responds to the procedure and the therapy. His doctor and his lawyer are fully aware of what is going on, and they and your husband have approved cost is not an issue. Now, if you don't mind, we'd like to get going. Wait, I haven't seen any agreement, and I don't even know what's going to happen. He doesn't need your approval, Mrs. John Jacob said. He's disabled, not incompetent. Everything has been explained to him, and he's given his approval. You do want your husband to get better, don't you? Yeah, of course I do, she said. I could detect a bit of guilt in her voice. Can I at least come see him? Perhaps after the procedure, when he's up to having visitors, you can come, Dr. Victor said. Otherwise, it's probably best if you stay right here for now. We'll be in touch. Perhaps this would be a good time to say goodbye and wish your husband well. Laura came in front of me and kissed me on the lips. Get better, sweetheart. Let me know when I can come see you, okay? Of course, I couldn't say anything, but I was steaming inside. Dr. Victor and his assistant wheeled me out to the van. After they got me inside, the assistant got in the driver's seat. We headed out. I could see Laura standing there in the parking lot, watching us leave. I didn't know what she was thinking, but I felt as though I had just been rescued from a hostage situation. A couple hours later, we arrived at the facility, and I was taken into a very nice room, where several nurses began preparing me for the procedure. I hope you don't mind, Ethan, but I thought it best to get started right away, Dr. Victor said. He turned to the nurses. Once you have him prepared, please bring him to the operating room. Yes, Dr. Victor, one of the nurses said. Okay, Ethan, I will leave you in the capable hands of your nurses, and I'll see you in the he told me, before leaving. Soon they had me undressed, washed down, and in a gown, you know the type, that leaves you exposed in the back. They placed me on a gurney, and wheeled me to the operating room, where 3 very large orderlies gingerly picked me up and placed me face down on the table. The anesthesiologist did his thing, and the last thing I heard, before I was out, was Dr. Victor saying, "Oh my," I had no idea what he was referring to. I woke up still face down, but this time I was in some kind of a contraption that kept me immobile. I had a tube going down my throat, and in force stuck in my arm. A blood pressure band was on my right arm. Suddenly the contraption turned, and I was looking up into Dr. Victor's face. You are awake, he said. Good. You will be happy to hear the operation went off quite well. We're going to have to keep you immobile for a few days to make sure everything heals properly. We had to replace quite a bit after all. You may feel some tingling or itching in your back. That's normal. That means the implants are doing their job. The nurses will keep a very close eye on you, as will I. The device you're in will automatically rotate your body every so often, so don't be alarmed. Just try to relax for now, okay? We'll talk in a couple days. With that, he checked my vitals, gave some instructions to the nurses, and left. What was it he said? Relax. What else was I going to do? I wondered. He was right about one thing. I did feel a tingling sensation in the middle of my back, and it aggravated me to no end. I also felt the itching, and I wanted to scratch, but I couldn't. As aggravating as it was nice to actually feel something for the first time in over a year. That night a couple nurses came in to wash me down. I could feel them as they washed my legs, buttocks, and back. I was more than surprised, I was shocked. I could actually feel what they were doing. They turned the bed over and began to wash me from the front. That's when I got a good look at them. They were both quite young and attractive. One had shoulder-length blonde hair, and the other was a brunette. As they washed me, I felt something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I couldn't move my head, but I could see a smile creep across their faces as they watched me. The blonde looked at me. Well, I'm no doctor, but it looks like something is working down here, she said with a smile. They giggled a bit, but kept doing their job. They finished what they were doing and left the room, but not before giving me some encouragement. I ended up staying in the device for 4 days. Each day was pretty much the same. X-rays were taken every morning, and nurses came in to massage my arms and legs later in the day. I was given a thorough sponge bath, I found that as each day went by, I could feel more of what was being done to me. On the fourth day, Dr. Victor came into my room and looked me over carefully. Sitting down next to me, he pulled out a pin and quickly stuck me in the leg. I felt it and made a noise. I couldn't say anything, since I still had a tube in my throat. He looked at me. "Did you feel that?" he asked. I blinked once and tried to nod my head, but I couldn't move it as it was still strapped down. He smiled. "Very good." He asked me to try moving my toes. To my surprise, I could. Then he asked me to move my fingers, which I did. "Outstanding," he exclaimed. He examined my x-rays closely and called in some nurses. "I think it's time we got Mr. JN out of this contraption." They pulled the tube out of my throat, removed my catheter, disconnected all of the tubes, and unstrapped me from the device. Then they moved me to a gurney and took me to my room, where they moved me to a bed. He spoke to the nurses, then sat down next to me. "I can't tell you how pleased I am with your results," he said. "We will need to start your physical therapy now, and we'll start with some exercises you can do in your bed. I don't want to put too much pressure on your back just yet." He put a cup with a straw to my mouth. "Take a drink." I did, and it felt so good going down my throat. "Try to say something," he said after I had swallowed. Wow, I coked. He laughed and nodded his head. "That will do," he said. "How do you feel?" Like a new man, my voice still very weak. I could feel my eyes start to water. This was the first time I had been able to do or say anything since the accident. He pulled a tissue and wiped my eyes. "I know this is a very emotional moment for you, Ethan. For now, I want you to take it easy. Greg tried to overdo it. Your back still has to heal a bit, but it looks like the implants are working just fine. I am concerned, Conquered, that you may have lost some muscle mass since the accident, so we're going to set you up with a program of diet and exercise to help you regain the use of your muscles. Now I'd like to introduce you to the staff members who will be taking care of you." He waved his hand, and a group of young women entered the room. "This is Emily, your dietitian. Na will be your physical therapist," he added, referring to a short-haired muscular blonde who nodded her head once. "Rachel will be your day nurse," pointing to a petite woman with short dark hair. "And this is Megan, your night nurse," he added, pointing to a taller red-haired woman. Her eyes twinkled as she smiled at me. "Nice to meet you," I managed to say. "Now if there is anything you need, please feel free to let us know," Dr. Victor said. "We all live here at the facility, so we're available 24 hours a day." He motioned for the women to leave the room for a bit, then turned back to me. "Ethan, I need to speak with you about something. This is a delicate subject, so if you feel a bit uncomfortable, let me know." "I'm curious," I said. "I noticed a fair amount of rectal damage. When we started the procedure on you, I also took samples of something I found in that area. I'm not here to judge, but I was just wondering." "No," I choked, more than a bit embarrassed. "I see," he said, "so you were abused." Tears began to fall down my cheek. "Yes," I managed to get out. He wiped my face. "Before speaking, you know I have an obligation to report this to the authorities in this state. It's a felony to abuse a disabled person. It's also considered a hate crime. I took samples of what I found, and the lab is doing analysis including DNA. Do you know who did this to you?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Was your wife involved?" he asked. "Don't know, she was never around when he did it." "I see," he said. "Are you willing to name the person who did this to you?" I nodded my head. "Yes," I told him. "Good, once we have the analysis, I'll contact the authorities. In the meantime, I'll set you up with a counselor." "Thanks, you're welcome. Now let's concentrate on getting you back on your feet, shall we?" They attached the device to the head of my large bed that allowed me to lift weights while laying down, but Dr. Victor didn't want me to use it just yet. For the first week, they simply had me do hand exercises, and they brought in a machine so I could do leg exercises. Na turned out to be quite the therapist. As she called cadence I spy drive, she countered in German as I pushed with one foot then the other. I couldn't help but notice that her accent was far more pronounced than Dr. Victor. She would have made a good drill instructor, I thought as she pushed me to go faster. "Gut," she declared, "we'll feed you some protein and get those muscles back in shape." Soon every friend in town will be after you, and probably a frustrated house fro or two, she added with a wicked laugh. And that brings us to the present, looking at the counselor who patiently listened to my story. She put her pen down, and looked at me. Ethan, these next few weeks are going to be very difficult for you. Frankly, I don't know which is going to be harder, the physical recovery or the emotional one. I'm glad you feel you can talk to me about this, and I hope you take action against those who abused and the edu. They violated the law. I need to be dealt with. I want you to know that I'm here for you, and you can talk to me anytime you need. Okay. Okay, thanks. With that, the session ended and I was wheeled back to my room. A couple days later, Dr. Victor came into my room, escorting a couple of men wearing dark suits. I noticed Jacob was with them. After chasing the nurses out of my room, the doctor sat down next to me. Ethan, these men are here to discuss your situation at home. I took the liberty of calling your lawyer as well. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, I said. Jacob seemed shocked. When he heard me speak, you're looking much better, Ethan, he said as he stood over me. I smiled and reached out to shake his hand, surprised he accepted, and shook my hand. Thank you, I'm feeling much better. I can even eat on my own now. He is doing quite well, Dr. Victor said. If all goes well, he'll be even stronger than he was before the accident. That's good to hear, Jacob said. Ethan, this is Agent Cole and Agent Davis with the State Police Poli. They're here to take your statement. Are you up to speaking with them? Absolutely. The three men pulled up chairs and Agent Cole pulled out a recorder. Mr. John, the first, hope you don't mind if we record this interview, he asked. Not at all, I said. They spent the next hour taking notes and asking questions as I recall the previous 4 months of abuse at the hand of the person I thought was my friend. This was the third time I had to admit what was done to me, and it was just as humiliating and painful. And you say this Mr. Wallace is the man who assaulted you repeatedly, Agent Cole asked. Yes, I said. I have the sample I took from Mr. John, along with the analysis, Dr. Victor said. There was significant rectal damage that had to be taken care of. That is all in my report. We'll need to take that into evidence, Agent Cole said. Dr. Victor nodded his head. Tell me, Mr. John, looking back at me, is this the same Greg Wallace who works at the law firm of McMaster and Williams? Yes, it is, I said. And your wife works at this firm as well? Yes, she does, I told him. And you alleged that the two of them have been engaged in an affair during this time, he asked. That's correct, I told him. Was she ever present when the assaults took place, Agent Cole asked. I shook my head. She was in the apartment, but never in the same room as I recall. In fact, she seemed to think that he was helping me somehow, I see, the agent said. Nevertheless, we're going to have to bring her in as an accessory, even if she wasn't physically in the same room. It's difficult to believe she wouldn't have known something was going on. Ethan, are you certain about all of this? Jacob asked, shocked. I know Greg personally, and I find it hard to believe he would do something like this. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think, I asked rhetorically. You have Dr. Victor's report, and you have the sample. I can't explain it, he said. I take it you're going to want a divorce from your wife. Absolutely, he nodded his head. All right, I'll start the paperwork. I'll get with you before we file. I also want a restraining order, I told him. I don't want either of them anywhere near me, and I sure as heck don't want them in my apartment as of right now. We'll be treating your apartment as a potential crime scene, Agent Cole said. How much longer is Mr. John going to be here? He asked Dr. Victor. Hard to say, the doctor told him at least 5 more weeks, perhaps longer. It depends on how well he responds to the treatment and the therapy. Very well, Cole said, at least he'll be safe for a while longer. He turned to his partner. Get a search warrant for the John apartment and arrest warrants for Mrs. JN and Mr. Wallace. The other agent nodded his head and left the room. Cole turned back to me. Just so you know, Mr. John, Cole said, we're going to charge your wife as an accessory. If it comes down to it, would you be willing to testify against her in court? Yes, I responded. Okay, he said quietly. By then Davis had returned and gave a thumbs up. Warren will be ready when we get back to the office. Cole nodded his head and packed up his gear and the sample he got from Dr. Victor. "We'll be in touch, Mr. John," he said. "I hope everything works out for you." "Thank you," I said. After they left, Jacob came over to me. "Ethan, these are serious charges you're making. Greg could lose everything: his job, his license, maybe even his marriage. Are you 100% certain about this?" "I'm 100% certain, Jacob. I frankly don't care if he loses everything. In fact, after what he's done, he deserves to lose everything. I hope you're on my side in this. Tell me now if you're not, and I'll find another attorney." "I'm on your side, Ethan. It's just I don't know, hard for me to believe. I've met his wife Eden at their home. I've never seen anything to suggest he'd do something this stupid." "Well, he did," I said. "Can I sue him as well?" "I don't see any reason why not," Jacob said. "We live in one of the few states where alienation of affection lawsuits are allowed, so I'll look into that as well. But you should know, they typically don't go very far. I'm truly sorry about this, Ethan. I had no idea." "Not your fault. I had no way of letting anyone know." We said our goodbyes, and he left. I felt a bit better, knowing that something was going to be done. The next couple weeks went fast. Na had me up on my feet in no time. At first she had me walk on a treadmill, then she had me working with weights. Emily had me on a diet high in protein and fiber, and I began to notice my muscle mass returning to normal. In the meantime, authorities were building a case against Greg and Laura. Jacob decided it would be best to hold the divorce papers until she was arrested. Agent Cole and Davis returned a couple times with state prosecutors, looking to get more detailed information from me about the assaults. They informed me that analysis verified that it was Greg's DNA Dr. Victor had extracted from me. Jacob had also hired a PI to gather evidence of their adultery. It wasn't difficult to do it all, since the two of them were quite blatant about their affair. Apparently Greg's wife C was oblivious to their activities, since she worked nights while they screwed around, and slept during the day while they were at work. After gathering evidence and finishing the paperwork, Jacob came out to go over it with me. He planned to file for divorce on the grounds of adultery, neglect, and cruelty. He had plenty of photos, video, and audio of them to back up his case. I really didn't want to hear or see what they had done, especially since I had already seen and heard enough of them to last a lifetime. He also had paperwork against Greg, and planned to sue the firm they worked for, since Laura was technically his subordinate and he had clearly violated company policy. Additionally, he planned to report Greg to the State Bar Association, and had paperwork drawn up accusing him of various ethics charges. I couldn't help but notice that Laura never once called the facility to check on my progress, and she never once came out to see how I was doing. Apparently she and Greg were too busy screwing to bother with me. Oh well, I thought this too would pass, and it did. At the end of the 2-month period, the authorities moved in and arrested them at the firm. Jacob's process server was also present and delivered the papers to all the parties concerned. My lawyer even alerted the media, who captured video of the two cheaters being placed in the back of police cruisers. Shocked by the allegations and the evidence we had against Greg, the firm acted quickly and settled with Jacob for most of what we asked for. They also fired the two of them and reported Greg to the state bar. C got word of the arrest that day, when Greg called her from the county lockup telling her he was in jail and would need her to show up in court for the arraignment so she could post his bail. Agent Cole and Davis got with Dr. Victor, and the three of them took me to the courthouse for the arraignment. C spotted me as I was wheeled in for the hearing, and came running up to me. "How is he?" she asked Dr. Victor. I looked up at her. "Better," I said, watching her reaction. It had been a year since she had heard me speak. "Didn't you hear your husband has abused me repeatedly over a 4-month period, at the same time he's been screwing Laura? You didn't know?" "Oh my God," she said. "I didn't know, Ethan. Please believe me, I had no idea this was going on. I've also filed for divorce from Laura, and I'm suing Greg for alienation of affection. If you want, I'll give you the name of my attorney in case you decide to file for divorce." "Damn right, I'm divorcing the son of a," she said. We went into the courtroom, and saw the sheriffs bring Greg and Laura in, both in orange jumpsuits, their hands and feet shackled and connected to another chain around their waist. They both looked like crap. The state prosecutor asked that both be remanded without bail, stating that Greg could be a flight risk, and a restraining order had been placed against Laura. He also told the judge that I was undergoing medical treatment and had filed for divorce. The prosecutor expressed concern that Greg might try to retaliate against me physically. The judge looked over the paperwork in front of him and agreed, ordering them both held without bail until the hearing, which he set for the next week. As they led Greg and Laura out, she looked and saw me sitting in the back of the courtroom. Her eyes widened as I held up one hand with the middle finger extended. C caught up with me after Agent Cole and Davis wheeled me out of the courtroom. She stopped them and knelt down to speak to me. "Ethan, I can't tell you how sorry I am about all this. I really didn't know." "That's all right, C," I told her. "How long are you going to be gone?" she asked. I shrugged my shoulders. "I don't know." I told her, "Maybe a few more weeks. They've really done a very good job. I can even walk around some now." "That's terrific. Please keep in touch and let me know how you're doing." "I will see. We really need to go now," Miss Agent Cole said. C nodded her head and stood up. "I understand. Take care of yourself, Ethan," she added. "Thanks, C," I said as Agent Cole wheeled me out to the van. After we got back to the facility, I was taken to the physical therapy room where Na had been waiting for me. "About time you showed up," she said. "Time to begin." She put me through my paces, and even gave me extra exercises to make up for being late. I was sore by the time she was finished with me, but I felt good. After dinner, Megan stayed behind to check my vitals and do her paperwork. When she finished, she came to the bed, made sure I was comfortable, sat down and looked at me for a few moments. Something seemed to be bothering her. "Is everything all right? You look like you have something on your mind," I said. "I was just wondering something," she said. "What do you find me attractive?" she asked. "Absolutely, I think you're a lovely girl, and a darn good nurse. Why? It's just, well, you haven't made a pass at me the whole time you've been here. I was wondering if I've done something to upset you, or if maybe you don't find me attractive." I smiled at her, before responding, "I'm actually very attracted to you," I said. "It's just that, for one thing, I'm still married, and secondly, I'm just learning how to get around all over again. Heck, I haven't even been able to speak for a year. Besides, what about your other patients?" "You're my only patient," she said quietly. "Dr. Victor is very particular about who he assigns to the night shift I see. So Dr. Victor is not only a medical genius and a miracle worker, he's also something of a matchmaker." She laughed at that. "It's been known to happen," she said. "Well, Megan, it so happens that I'm very partial to shy, beautiful redheads, and I'm getting divorced, so there's that." She smiled widely and her eyes twinkled. "Would it be okay if I kissed you goodnight?" she asked. "Absolutely." She leaned in and gave me a soft kiss. After a second, the soft kiss turned into something more sensuous, and soon our tongues were wrestling in each other's mouths. When she broke the kiss, I felt something. "I'm here for you all night, every night. If you ever need anything at all, call me, okay? I know you're not quite up to making love, but I'd love to just spend time with you," Megan said softly. "I will, I promise," I said. She smiled and quietly left the room. I thought about what she said and fell asleep, images of red-headed angels dancing in my head all night. The next few days flew by, with Nina working me harder and harder. I found that I was able to walk several miles on the treadmill, and my muscles had strengthened to the point that I was able to bench press more weight than I ever could before. The daily X-rays showed that my new vertebrae were working even better than Dr. Victor had predicted, and the implants had repaired nearly all of the damaged nerves. Megan kept me company most evenings, laying on the bed watching television with me, or on other evenings just talking. We would often share a bowl of popcorn while watching a movie and would snuggle up together with a bowl on our laps. We always ended the evening with a good night kiss. I started to feel like a high school boy on a date with the prettiest girl in school. On top of that, I was falling for her heart. By the time Agent Cole and Davis came to pick me up for the main part of Laura and Greg's trial, I no longer needed the wheelchair, but Dr. Victor insisted that I use it anyway, just to make certain I didn't accidentally hurt myself. He went along as well, not only as a witness to the injuries I sustained, but to make sure I got back in one piece. I sat in my chair immediately behind the prosecutor, with Dr. Victor next to me. I saw Laura and Greg enter the room, and sit down next to their defense attorney. They glanced over at me before whispering to their attorney. C sat behind him, but she didn't look very happy. The jury which had been selected the previous day was seated, and soon the judge entered with the BFF giving the order for everyone to stand up. Using the rail in front of me for support, I stood up, and noticed the look of shock on Greg and Laura's faces. When the judge came in, he gave the order to be seated and we all sat down. Dr. Victor asked me quietly if I was okay, and I nodded my head in the affirmative. The judge opened the proceedings by reading the long list of charges and noting that both Greg and Laura had pled not guilty. After both sides gave their opening statements, the judge turned to the prosecution attorney, who called me as his first witness. Dr. Victor walked beside me to make sure I didn't fall down on the way, then went back to his seat after I sat down in the witness chair. Greg and Laura looked at each other shocked. They were even more shocked when I spoke after the Belia swore me to tell the truth. The prosecutor stood up and walked over to me. He began by congratulating me on my progress, then asked questions relating to my accident and a year or so I spent as a quadriplegic. I understood what he was doing by asking these questions. He was informing the jury of my physical condition prior to my treatment at Dr. Victor's facility. Most of the questions at this point dealt with my home life, how Laura tried to look after me but was unable to, and how C had managed to get home health care professionals to take care of me during the day. And during any of this time, did your wife ever attempt to see to your emotional needs? The prosecutor asked. No, sir, I told him. Did she ever attempt to please you in any way? Okay, he asked. No, she did not, I said. Had she tried, would she have been successful? He asked. I shook my head no, I had no feeling from the neck down. I see, he said. Did she ever hug you or kiss you or spend time with you, maybe reading a book or watching television? I thought hard before answering, but I honestly couldn't remember her doing much of anything like that. She sometimes gave me a peck on the cheek, but that was about it, I said. Did she participate in your care? He asked. Did she feed you, help bathe you, perhaps help you in the bathroom? She tried at first, but she simply wasn't up to it. When did Mr. Wallace come into the picture? Almost from the beginning, I said. Were you friends before your accident? The prosecutor asked. Yes, we were. They lived next door to us and we had spent time together before my accident. I see, so you weren't surprised to see him in your apartment then? No, I thought we were friends. They often came over and we would share a beer or dinner sometimes. You say he and your wife engaged in inappropriate activity in your apartment, the prosecutor said. When did that start? I'm not certain exactly. They could have been doing it while I was in the hospital, but I'm not certain. I have no proof of that. He often let her cry on his shoulder. When they were both there, I guess it was about a month after I got home from the hospital that I first heard them. Heard them? The prosecutor asked. Yes, I could hear them kissing and moaning, as if they were making out. Laura wiped her eyes, as I recalled what I heard. Then I heard them in what used to be our bed, being intimate. What happened then? The prosecutor asked. He would come into my room, and taught me while she showered. One day he brought in a monitor in a box, and told me it was so I could watch a real man with my wife. That brought gasps from Laura and the jury. Your Honor, the prosecutor said as the BFF wheeled out a cart with a large monitor and a black box into the courtroom. This is the monitor and box Mr. JN is referring to. The box is actually a digital video recorder. The system also included 2 video cameras, one set up in Mr. John's live master bedroom and another in the room where he stayed. We copied several hours of video, recorded by the device. The prosecutor turned back to me. Is it your testimony that Mr. Wallace used this so you could watch him being intimate with your wife? He asked. Yes, I said quietly. Laura looked at Greg shocked. You liar, she said. The judge pounded his gavel. Order in the court, he said. Laura quieted down, and the prosecutor continued. Did you know that Mr. Wallace placed a camera in your room, as well as the master bedroom? He asked me. I shook my head. This was news to me. No, sir, I didn't. How did your wife react to this monitor? The prosecutor asked. She thought it was wonderful that he had gotten it for me. Apparently she thought it was so I could watch sports on television. And was it about this time that the abuse against you began? The prosecutor asked. Yes, it was, I said. Please tell the court what would typically happen, the prosecutor said. After Greg and my wife had their fun, he would come into my room and turn the monitor off. Then he would lift me up and abused me. Is it your testimony that he abused you? The prosecutor asked. Yes, I replied, embarrassed. Was your wife ever present when this took place? The prosecutor asked. Not that I'm aware of. He always seemed to finish about the time she was done with her shower. Afterward she would come into my room and tell me how wonderful it was we had a friend like Greg to help look after me. How often did this happen? About 2 or 3 times a week, I said. For how long? The prosecutor asked. About 4 months. I heard members of the jury gasp, and as I looked I saw some of them glare at Laura and Greg with hatred in their eyes. Laura looked down at the table, as Greg sat stoic looking straight ahead. So you estimate that this happened about 35 times overall? The prosecutor asked. About that, yes, I said. Were you aware that Mr. Wallace recorded his time in your room? He asked me. I shook my head. No, I wasn't. The prosecutor looked at the jury. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wallace recorded himself abusing Mr. John chapter 36 times on this device, he said. He paused, as the jury took that in. With friends like that, who needs enemies? The prosecutor asked rhetorically. The defense attorney objected, and the judge sustained the objection. That's all I have for this witness at this time, he said, but I reserve the right to recall Mr. JN to the stand. Very well, the judge sighed. Witness Mr. Bradley, he said to the defense attorney. Bradley stayed at his table and looked up at me before speaking. Mr. John, the first, I'm sorry to hear of your injuries, and I do hope you get better. Thank you, I said. Just one thing, he continued. At any time did you ever indicate to Mr. Wallace that you did not approve of his alleged actions? I wasn't able to. I was completely disabled at the time, and I couldn't even speak, so the answer is no. Then he said. That's because I couldn't, I said, getting irritated. You also failed to inform anyone what happened, not even your wife. Isn't that true? He asked. Now I was upset. That's because I was completely disabled, and couldn't, I yelled, slamming my fist down on the heavy wood rail in front of me. For a moment, no one said or did anything. When I moved my hand away I saw that I had cracked the railing. I didn't realize I had hit it that hard. I looked at the judge before speaking. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I lost my temper. Don't do it again, he warned me. I nodded my head. That's all I have for this witness, Bradley said. The judge indicated that I could leave the stand, and Dr. Victor came to walk me back to my seat. The prosecutor then called Dr. Victor to the stand. He told the court about my injuries and the extent of my disability. He also explained that he had found significant damage, took samples for evidence and testing, then did what he could to heal the damage. He also explained the surgery he had performed, in my progress since the surgery. And in your professional opinion, the only way for this damage to have been done is for Mr. JN to have been abused. Is that right? The prosecutor asked. Correct, Dr. Victor said. That would also explain the presence of evidence. Thank you, the prosecutor said. He turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, that sample was tested by the state. Further testing and DNA analysis proves with a 99.99% certainty that it belongs to the defendant Greg Wallace. He turned to the judge. That is all I have for this witness, Your Honor. Your witness, Mr. Bradley, the judge said. Thank you, Dr. Victor. You run the Arrowhead Institute of Advanced Medical Research, is that correct? Yes, that is correct, he said. You engage in some pretty cutting-edge research there, do you not? Bradley asked. Sure, Dr. Victor said, slipping into his native German as he sometimes did. Bradley pulled out a piece of paper and began reading. Each of us has various defense mechanisms to help us cope with extreme situations. Sometimes we fall back on an alternate version of ourselves, what could possibly be described as an alter ego, if you will. That alter ego could manifest itself in many ways. Unnormally quiet, unassuming individual could suddenly become boisterous, arrogant, and overbearing, for example. Those not familiar with this behavior from that person would suddenly have a much different opinion of him or her he read before looking back up at Dr. Victor. You also write about something called an inner beast that lays dormant within each of us. According to your writings, you claim to have found a way to unleash that so-called beast to help deal with a particular situation. Is that true? He asked. I did write that, and yes, my research has found that to be the case, Dr. Victor said. Is it not true that sometimes time back you worked with a Mr. Bill Dalton and helped him find his alleged inner beast? Just yes or no would do fine, Bradley said. I worked with Mr. Dalton, yes, Dr. Victor said. The exact nature of my work, however, is a matter of doctor-patient confidentiality. Is it not true that toward the end of his treatment, Mr. Dalton's house mysteriously blew up? Bradley asked. The prosecutor immediately objected. Irrelevant, Your Honor. Your Honor, Bradley said, we all witnessed Mr. Junk's reaction. If you'll allow me, I think there is a connection. I'll allow it for the moment, Mr. Bradley, the judge said, but I would appreciate it if you could make your point and move on. I will, Your Honor, thank you, Bradley said. He turned back to Dr. Victor. Are you aware of what happened to Mr. Dalton's home? Bradley asked. I remember seeing something about it on the news, Dr. Victor said. I also remember the police saying that Mrs. Dalton and her live-in lover were making drugs using highly volatile material. I don't see the connection to this case. According to police reports, Mrs. Dalton was seen running out of the house, screaming about a monster, Bradley said. Apparently a result of the drugs she and her lover were manufacturing, Dr. Victor said. Your Honor, this is completely irrelevant to the case before the court today, and Mr. Bradley knows that full well. I insist this line of questioning be stopped, the prosecutor said. I tend to agree. I've been more than fair, Mr. Bradley. Please move on. Very well, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness. The judge dismissed Dr. Victor, and the case went on. The prosecutor called the state agents, who searched my apartment. Both of them said they found what appeared to be evidence of abuse. Then he called home healthcare nurses, who testified they noticed what appeared to be signs of physical abuse. They noted it in their records, but the home care facility never followed up, and the reports ended up falling through the bureaucratic cracks. I have one last piece of evidence, Your Honor, the prosecutor said. With your permission, I would like to play a portion of video taken of the abuse against Mr. John. Very well, the judge said. The prosecutor looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, what I am about to show you is shocking, he said. I take no joy in this, but I believe it's necessary that you see for yourselves what Mr. John had to endure for months on end. He turned on the monitor and began playing the video. The jury grimaced as they watched. Greg could clearly be seen abusing me. The prosecutor paused the video and enlarged the picture. Ladies and gentlemen, let there be no doubt in your mind who is doing this heinous act to a man who once thought of him as a friend, he said. After the jury looked at the picture for a few moments, tears started falling down my face in shame once again. The prosecutor paused the video. He looked at the shocked members of the jury. I rest my case, he said with disgust. Mr. Bradley, you may present your case, the judge said after the prosecutor sat down. Bradley got up and called Laura to the stand. Mrs. John, he said, is it true that you had an affair with Mr. Wallace? Yes, it is, she said quietly. Can you tell us why? He asked. My husband Ethan was injured so bad, and I felt lost in hope, hopeless, she said. He was there when I needed a shoulder to cry on. Yes, we had an affair, but that's all. It was just an affair, nothing more. Were you aware of what Mr. Wallace did to your husband? Bradley asked. No, I wasn't. If you had known, would you have done anything to stop him? Bradley asked. Yes, I would have. Thank you, Mrs. John. That's all for now. Your witness, Mr. Foster, he said, sitting down. The prosecutor got up and walked to the monitor. He went to an image on the video that clearly showed both my face and Laura in the same frame. Mrs. John, he began, you testified that you had no idea your husband was being abused, is that correct? Yes, look at his face in that video, the prosecutor said. The hurt and humiliation was obvious to anyone looking at the video. Do you expect this court to believe that you could look at your husband of 3 years in that condition and not know that something was wrong? It didn't cross my mind at the time, she said. Before Mrs. Wallace brought home healthcare workers into the home, Did you ever once feed him or clean your husband? The prosecutor asked. I tried, but I wasn't very good at it, she said. What about afterward? Did you even try to help? No, she said quietly. And why was that? The prosecutor asked. I don't know, I thought Greg was helping him, and I really didn't know what to do. The truth is you basically abandoned him, didn't you? The prosecutor's question elicited an objection from Bradley. I withdraw the question, Foster quickly said. You said your affair with Mr. Wall was purely physical, correct? That's right, she said. And you claimed in your testimony that you still love your husband, right? Yes, she said. Walking back to his table, Foster pulled out an audio recorder and a folder from his briefcase. He walked back to the bench. Your Honor, this is a written report done by Samuel Jenkins, a private investigator hired by Mr. John K. Attorney, he said, handing the report to the judge. A copy of this report and the audio was provided to Mr. Bradley, as the accompanying affidavit shows. The report references an audio recording of a conversation between the defendants, made as they were out on a dinner date shortly after Mr. JN was admitted to Arrowhead. With your permission, I'd like to play that audio for the jury. Very well, the judge said. Foster pressed a button on the recorder, and the courtroom could hear a conversation between Laura and Greg. So have you given any thought to what we discussed? Greg's voice said on the audio. I have, and I admit I'm intrigued, Laura said. Well, what do you think? I have to admit these last several months with you have been terrific, she said in the recording. Much better than my life with Ethan has ever been. Are you sure we can pull this off? Of course, Greg said. I'm a lawyer, you know. I can get a judge to do whatever I want. Getting Ethan declared a ward of the state would be a piece of cake. He can't take care of himself, and it's obvious you're not trained to take care of him. Frankly, I can't stomach the idea of it, she said. I mean, feeding him like a baby, wiping his drool, changing his diaper, and washing his butt. Yuck. It makes me sick just thinking about it. I need a man, a whole man, a real man like you. You and I both know this Victor guy won't be able to do anything for him, Greg said. All the doctors said he would be an invalid for the rest of his life. Once we get him declared incompetent, we can get hold of that huge settlement of his and go live like kings in Costa Rica someplace. Wouldn't that be better than staying here wiping the crap off Lil Timmy? Yeah, it would, she said. What about C though? What about the? Greg said. Look, things haven't been that great between us for a long time. She wants kids, but I don't, and I'm frankly getting tired of her constant nagging. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you're not going to go soft on me and tell me you still loved him after we get things rolling. That won't happen. I love you and only you. The prosecutor stopped the audio, then looked at Laura. I felt as if my heart had just been torn out again. So you and your lover planned to have your husband declared incompetent, so the two of you could grab his settlement money and run off to Costa Rica. So were you telling your lover the truth, or were you telling the truth here in court? Which is it, Mrs. John? Please tell me now, so I know whether or not to charge you with perjury. Tears ran down her face, as she was now forced to publicly face her own duplicity. I don't know, she cried. I still loved him, but I loved Greg too. She looked over at me. Please, Ethan, forgive me. I shook my head and looked away from her. Foster looked at her disgusted. I'm done with this witness, he said, walking away. The judge excused her, and Bradley called Greg to the stand. So Mr. Wallace, Bradley began again after Greg was sworn in. We've seen video of you and Mr. John. There's no denying what we all saw. I just have one question. At any time did Mr. JN indicate to you that he did not consent to your actions? Not once, Greg said, a sneer on his face. Thank you, Bradley said, turning away. Your witness, he told Foster, who was already on his feet. Mr. Wallace, Foster began. You graduated from Harvard Law School, did you not? Yes, I did, Greg stated proudly. And you graduated near the top of your class, didn't you? I did. In fact, you're highly regarded as a top litigator in your firm, Foster said. Bradley objected. Relevance, Your Honor. Your Honor, I intend to show that Mr. Wallace not only knows the law, but he knew that Mr. JN could not possibly have given consent, Foster replied. Go ahead, Mr. Foster, the judge said. Thank you, he turned back to Greg. You knew that Mr. John was disabled, didn't you? Greg sighed, but said nothing. Didn't you? Foster bellowed. Yes, I knew, Greg responded. And you knew that the law in this state says persons with Mr. J's disabilities are incapable of giving consent, didn't you? Foster asked. Yes, I guess so. Foster looked at him with disgust for a few moments, then shook his head. I'm finished with this witness, Foster said, walking away. Any more witnesses, Mr. Bradley? The judge asked. Bradley shook his head. No, Your Honor, I rest my case. Very well, we'll take 15 minutes and reconvene to hear closing arguments. He pounded his gavel, and everyone left the courtroom. Dr. Victor handed me a cup of water. How are you holding up? He asked as I sipped the water. I'll be okay, I told him. He patted me on the shoulder. Good. Foster turned to see how I was doing. I'm sorry you had to relive all that, he told me. I think we've made an impression on the jury. We'll see. This is almost over, Ethan. Hang in there. Thanks, I said. Soon enough the break was over, and everyone came back into the courtroom. Greg, Laura and Mr. Bradley didn't look as confident as they did earlier in the day. Cy looked angry enough to spit nails. This was the first time she had heard much of this. The BFF had everyone stand when the judge came back in. All right, Mr. Bradley, present your closing statement. Bradley stood up and faced the jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is not an easy case for any of us. And contrary to what you might believe, we do hope that Mr. JN gets better. We've stipulated that the alleged abuse happened with Mr. John. We're not arguing that point. But this is a case that revolves around consent, or the lack of it. Mr. JN admitted under oath that he never once indicated to my client that he did not give consent. Mrs. JN had no clue there was anything out of order, and she never knew the alleged abuse had taken place. Therefore, you have no choice but to find my clients not guilty. Thank you. He took his seat. And the judge motioned for Foster to give his closing remarks. On the way, he turned the monitor on and showed the image of Greg abusing me. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your service here today. I know this has been very hard on all of you. The defense has tried to obfuscate the issue, claiming that Mr. JN never indicated that he did not consent to what was being done to him. There's only one problem. Mr. JN was disabled. He could not speak and he could not defend himself. Under the law in this state, persons with disabilities like his are incapable of giving or denying consent. Mr. Bradley knows this, so does the defendant Wallace, who by the way is a well-trained Harvard lawyer. They've admitted to the acts against Mr. John. You've seen the video, you've heard the audio. You know the defendants intended to fraudulently have Mr. JN declared incompetent in order to take what is rightfully his and flee the country. The defendant Wallace took Mr. John's wife, and he intended to take Mr. John's money, leaving his own wife high and dry. You've heard the defendant's plot and scheme against Mr. JN. The defense has not provided any doubt about what took place. 36 times, the defendant Wallace abused Mr. JN. In each case, Mrs. John did nothing to put an end to it. In this state, abuse and intentional neglect of a disabled old person is classified as a hate crime. That's why I'm pushing for the maximum punishment allowed by law. The state has done its job. Now I ask that you do yours and give Mr. John the justice he deserves. Thank you. After Foster took his seat, the judge gave his orders to the jury and sent them off to deliberate. He then put the rest of the court into recess. Dr. Victor and I went into the hallway, where Jacob was waiting. I just wanted to let you know that Laura signed the divorce papers, he said. She's not contesting anything. I just got back from filing them. The judge will sign off on them in a day or two, and in 6 months you'll be a free man. Free? I asked sarcastically. Why don't I feel free then? You've been through a lot, young man, Dr. Victor said. Trust me, it'll get better. I hope so, and I think I know just the person who can help you feel better, the doctor said with a knowing smile. You mean Megan? I asked. Dr. Victor smiled and nodded his head. He said, she really likes you, you know. It was my turn to smile. I like her too a lot. Good, Dr. Victor said, just be careful though. I don't want you having sex for at least another 6 to 8 weeks. I don't want to see you put too much strain on your back, just yet, he added with a smile. By the way, I added, What's the deal with that rail? How did I manage to crack that thing? I barely slapped it. Must be the supplements we've been giving you, he laughed. That and Nina's physical therapy, nothing to do with that inner beast stuff, I said. He laughed. Not at all, that's a whole different project. Besides, I wouldn't recommend that for you, not with the custom-built vertebrae we've put in. We talked for a while longer, and after about an hour Foster stuck his head into the hallway. Jury's back in already? I asked. He nodded his head. That was fast. Yeah, it was, Foster said. Hopefully that's good news for us. We went through the motions again, as everyone filed back into the courtroom. The BFF instructed us all to rise. As the judge entered, then we all took our seats on his signal. Has the jury reached a decision? He asked. We have. The jury foreman announced. The Baith took the sheet from the foreman and handed it to the judge. After he read it to himself, he instructed Laura and Greg to stand up. Bradley stood with them. On the charges against defendant Greg Wallace, how do you find? The judge asked. We find the defendant Donald Wallace guilty on all charges, the foreman said. And on the charges against defendant Laura John, how do you find? We find the defendant Laura J.N. not guilty on the charge of accessory to abuse of a disabled person, Your Honor, and guilty on all the other charges, the foreman said. The judge nodded his head. Very well, he said, turning to the defendants. He unleashed his fury on them. I have seen and heard a lot in this courtroom over the years, but I have never seen nor heard anything as outrageous and egregious as I have witnessed here today. The two of you frankly make me sick to my stomach. Not only have you made a mockery of your marriages, you have made a mockery of the legal profession. That's why I'm giving you the maximum sentences allowed by law. Mr. Wallace, as a well-trained lawyer and an officer of the court, your activity disgusts me beyond words. Upon the prosecutor's request, I am sentencing you to no less than 450 years at hard labor. That's 12 years for each of the 36 counts of abuse, along with 20 years added for committing a hate crime. I've also added 8 years for conspiracy to commit fraud. Mrs. John I did not agree with the jury's not guilty verdict. I personally do not see how any person with more than 2 brain cells could not know the abuse against your husband was taking place. Nevertheless, I will abide by the verdict. I am, however, giving you the maximum sentence for criminal negligence and conspiracy to commit fraud, which under the state guidelines totals 15 years in prison, making you eligible for parole in 10, he said. He raised his gavel, but Bradley addressed the judge. Your Honor, he said. Mrs. John has just informed me that divorce papers have been filed, and she would like to speak with Mr. J.N. before she is taken into custody. Are you okay with that, Mr. John? The judge asked. I can give her a couple minutes, Your Honor, I said. He nodded his head, said very well. He pounded his gavel and declared the court dismissed. Laura walked over to me, as deputies prepared to take Greg away. You look good, she said. Thank you, I responded. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry about all of this. I really had no idea what he was doing to you. I would have done whatever I could to stop it if I had known. I think you convinced the jury of that, I said. I agree with the judge, though I find it hard to believe. You're not a stupid woman. At any rate, you'll have 15 years to think about it. Was that there something else? Yes, she replied. I wanted you to know I signed the divorce papers and I'm not going to fight you over it. That's what I heard, I told her. Don't you want to know why it happened? She asked. I shook my head. I really don't care, I told her. I'm sure it was all for greed and lust. You cheated me, plain and simple. The why really doesn't matter anymore. Do you think you could ever forgive me? She asked. Why is it all you cheating losers think you can come crawling and begging for forgiveness? I asked. You sure didn't give a damn about me when I needed you the most. To answer your question though, no, I don't intend to ever forgive you. Instead, I'm going to do my best to forget you exist. Was there something else? I know you won't believe me, but I do love you, she said. I just wanted to tell you that, before they take me to jail. You're right, I don't believe you, but thanks for saying so anyway. I think you better get going. Those deputies don't look too happy over there. Okay, goodbye, Ethan. With that, she walked away, tears in her eyes. At that point, I felt absolutely nothing for her. As I got up, C came over to me. How are you, Ethan? You look better than you have in a long time. Thanks, I'm doing much better, thanks to Dr. Victor here. I just wanted to apologize for what my loser soon-to-be ex-husband did to you. I appreciate that, I told her. Did you get in touch with Jacob? Yes, I did. Greg's father insisted we get a prenuptial agreement before we got married, and it has a very strict infidelity clause in it. So Jacob's going to have a field with it. I'm glad to hear it, I told her. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Thanks, I may need to borrow some copies of those videos from you. No problem, I replied, whatever you need. I'll be gone for a bit longer, but I'm sure Jacob can use what he already has. One last thing, she said, I still have that key you guys gave me right after the accident. I'll get your place cleaned up, and get Laura's things out of there if you want. That would be a big help. See, thanks. No problem, good luck, and I'll see you soon, she added, giving me a kiss on the cheek. We watched as she left. I couldn't believe how stupid Greg was to cheat on such a good woman. Are you finished flirting with all the women? Dr. Victor asked. I'd like to get back to work if you don't mind. Works for me, I said, but how are we going to get back? No problem, we'll take care of that for you, Agent Cole said from behind us. After all, we're the ones who brought you here. At Dr. Victor's insistence, I sat down in the wheelchair, and he took me out to the car where we all piled in. Actually, I was a bit relieved to have the wheelchair. I had been up and down most of the day and I was feeling a bit tired and achy. We got back to the facility, and Dr. Victor wheeled me into my room where Megan was waiting for me. After dinner, she helped get me ready for bed, then went into the bathroom where she changed into her sleepwear, which was actually just a long t-shirt. How are you feeling? She asked when she climbed into bed with me. Wiped out, it's been a long day, I said. She kissed me and laid her head on my shoulder. Yes, it has, she said. I know it's been hard, but it had to be done. Now you can start putting all that behind you. And I'll be here to help in any way I can. I looked into her face for a while before speaking. I love you, Megan, I said without thinking. She smiled sweetly and kissed me on the lips. And I love you, Ethan, she said. She put her head on my shoulder and draped an arm over my chest. I felt happier than I had in a very long time. Soon we were both asleep. They ran me ragged over the next 5 weeks. Na and her drill instructor came out pushing me to go farther and faster with each session. On top of that, I was making twice weekly visits with the counselor to help me get past the trauma I suffered over the previous year. Every day they took x-rays to check the status of my spine. Megan spent every night in my bed, and we got to know each other quite well. Finally, Dr. Victor announced that I had healed well enough that I could be sent home. By then my body was in better shape than it had ever been, but he instructed me to refrain from strenuous activity for another 3 weeks. He also scheduled me to come in twice a month for the next year, so they could do a checkup on my back. I was anxious to get back home, but I also knew I would miss Megan. The day I was scheduled to leave, I wrote a note telling her of my feelings for her. I also invited her to come visit me anytime she wished. I finished the note as Dr. Victor came into my room with a wheelchair. I looked at him confused. I was able to walk on my own by now after all. He shrugged his shoulders. Regulations, he said. I understand. As I sat in the wheelchair, I had hoped to never sit in one of these things again. He wheeled me to the pickup area outside, and I looked around waiting for the Arrowhead van to show up. Instead, I saw a dark blue Toyota RAV4 pull up. The driver's side door opened up and I saw her, Megan, my red-headed angel of mercy. She came around and opened the passenger door for me. Surprised, I looked at Dr. Victor. Megan has a new assignment, he said with a smile. She'll be your live-in caretaker, that is unless you have any objections. Absolutely not, I said, smiling. I shook his hand. Thank you, Dr. Victor, for everything. You're welcome, he said with a smile. I'll see you in a couple weeks. He looked at Megan. Please take care of our boy, okay? I will, she said with a smile. After helping me inside, she got in the car. I noticed several bags have been packed into the back of the vehicle. So how long are you going to be assigned to me? I asked. That depends on how long you need me. How long do you think that might be? Conservative estimate, I'd say at least 60 years, I replied. Is that okay with you? Darn straight it is, I said. She kissed me on the lips, then pulled out and headed home. When we got home, I marked the date on the calendar when Dr. Victor said I could start resuming normal activities. As it turned out, that just happened to be the day after my divorce from Laura was final. About 2 years after her divorce, C fell in love with a doctor and got married. I never visited Laura in prison, but I learned that she was going through counseling. After 15 years, she was released on parole and got a job as a waitress in a truck stop diner out on the highway. Megan and I tied the knot about 6 months after my divorce was final. That was a good thing, since she informed me a few weeks after we returned from our honeymoon that we were going to be parents. We had 2 more children after that, and decided that would be enough for the time being. Our love for each other never waned, and when our youngest child left for college, we celebrated with an around-the-world cruise. Even after all these years, she's still my beautiful red-headed angel of mercy. My vertebrae got stronger, and it seemed that I was in better health than I had ever been. The implants also did their job, and all the nerve damage I suffered from the accident had been reversed. Dr. Victor performed the operation successfully several more times over the next 10 years, and the procedure now awaits final approval. As I look back on my life now, I can't help but think about that quote by John Milton that every cloud has a silver lining. Yes, I went through hell for a year after that truck ran me over. That was my dark cloud. But what I have now would put any silver lining to shame.